In 2008, a cardboard box in a North Carolina attic changed everything we thought we knew about one of the Civil War's bloodiest battles. Inside was a voice that had been silenced for 140 years, and what he witnessed was never supposed to be told. For over a century, the official records told one version of the Battle of Crater, a Union disaster that cost thousands of lives in 1864. But Confederate Private Robert Knox's handwritten account, hidden away and forgotten, revealed something the history books deliberately left out: the brutal aftermath that commanders on both sides tried to bury. By the end of this video, you'll discover what Knox saw that July day, why his testimony vanished from the historical record, and how modern historians are now rewriting this chapter of the Civil War. This isn't just about uncovering old documents, it's about confronting the uncomfortable truths that get erased from history. Let's start with how this even surfaced. July 2008, Lynchburg, Virginia. A family clearing out their great-grandmother's estate stumbles across a weathered cardboard box labeled only with the year 1867. Inside, wrapped in oilcloth, was a leather-bound journal, 143 pages of cramped handwriting, some entries smudged by what appeared to be water damage, others written in hasty, shaking script. The family initially thought it was just another soldier's routine account: rations eaten, miles marched, the mundane details of camp life. But when they brought it to Dr. Patricia Sullivan, a Civil War historian at the University of Virginia, she immediately recognized something extraordinary. One entry, dated July 30th, 1864, began with these words: "What I witnessed this day will haunt me until I die. I pray God forgives us all, for I cannot forgive myself." July 30th, 1864. That was the date of the Battle of the Crater, one of the Union's most catastrophic failures of the entire war. But Robert Knox wasn't writing about the battle itself. He was writing about what came after. To understand why this matters, we need to go back to that sweltering summer day outside Petersburg. By July 1864, the Civil War had been raging for 3 brutal years. General Ulysses S. Grant had Union forces locked in a siege of Petersburg, Virginia, the key to capturing the Confederate capital of Richmond, just 25 miles north. But the Confederate defenses were too strong for a frontal assault. So a regiment of Pennsylvania coal miners came up with an audacious plan. They would dig a 511-foot tunnel under Confederate lines, pack it with 8,000 pounds of gunpowder, and literally blow a hole in the enemy defenses. At 4:44 a.m. on July 30th, the explosion erupted. The blast was heard in Richmond. It created a crater 170 feet long, 60 feet wide, and 30 feet deep, instantly killing an estimated 278 Confederate soldiers. What should have been a brilliant tactical victory turned into a nightmare. Union commanders sent wave after wave of troops directly into the crater instead of around it. Confederate forces, recovering from shock, surrounded the depression and turned it into a killing field. Among the Union troops were regiments of the United States Colored Troops, black soldiers fighting for their freedom. And this is where Robert Knox's account becomes crucial, because what he documented contradicts the sanitized version that appeared in official military reports. If you're learning something new about this forgotten piece of history, go ahead and hit that like button. It genuinely helps more people discover these untold stories. Now, here's what Knox witnessed that changed everything. Knox was a 19-year-old private in the 25th Virginia Infantry, positioned on the crater's rim as Confederate forces retook control. His entry from that afternoon is harrowing. The colored troops raised white flags and threw down their rifles, calling for quarter, but Captain Weaver gave no order to accept surrender. What followed, I cannot write plainly. Men shot down as they begged, officers looking away. One sergeant beside me vomited and would not fire. I did not fire either, though I held my rifle. This was not war. This was murder. Knox's account aligns with fragmentary evidence historians have long suspected but couldn't fully document. Confederate forces massacred black Union soldiers attempting to surrender, a war crime by any standard, even in 1864. Official Confederate reports simply stated that the crater was retaken with minimal resistance. Union reports focused on tactical failures while avoiding the fate of captured black soldiers. Both sides had reasons to bury this part of the story, but Knox kept writing. In an entry dated August 3rd, he describes confronting his commanding officer. "I asked Lieutenant Morrison why we did not accept their surrender. He said it was not his decision to make. Then he said something that struck me cold. 'Some things ain't meant for the history books, boy. Best you forget what you seen.' But I will not forget." And he didn't. Knox survived the war, returned to North Carolina, and apparently kept this journal hidden. Historians believe he may have intended to publish it posthumously, but his death in 1903 came suddenly, a farming accident, and the journal ended up in a trunk, then an attic, lost to time, until 2008. Since its authentication, Knox's diary has been cited in over 40 academic papers and 3 major books on the Civil War. It's been used to support the historical record that, yes, atrocities were committed against black Union soldiers, and yes, there was a systematic effort to erase these crimes from official memory. But here's what makes Knox's account truly remarkable: his moral clarity. Remember, this was a Confederate soldier. By the standards of his time and place, he had every reason to justify what happened, or simply say nothing. Instead, he called it what it was: murder. His final entry about the crater, dated September 1864, reads, "We are told we fight for our homes and our way of life. But if our way of life requires such acts, then perhaps it deserves to fall. I do not know if we will win this war, but I know we have lost something greater: our souls." Knox deserted 3 months later. His service records show he simply walked away from his unit and never returned. He wasn't alone. By late 1864, Confederate desertion rates had skyrocketed, partly because soldiers like Knox could no longer reconcile what they were fighting for. So what do we take away from Robert Knox's buried testimony? First, that primary sources, the actual words of people who were there, are irreplaceable. Official records are written by victors and commanders with agendas. The truth often lives in letters, diaries, and journals that were never meant for publication. Second, that the Civil War's legacy is far more complex than we're often taught. Yes, it was about slavery. The diary makes that impossible to deny. But it was also about individual moral choices in impossible circumstances. Knox chose to remember rather than forget, to document rather than justify. And third, that history is never really settled. There are still attics with boxes, still archives with uncatalogued collections, still stories waiting to be told. The version of history we know today isn't complete, and that should make us humble about what we think we know and curious about what we've yet to discover. Knox's diary is now preserved at the Library of Virginia, available to researchers. The Battle of the Crater site is a national park where rangers now include Knox's testimony in their interpretation of what happened that day. His voice, silenced for 140 years, is finally being heard. Here's my question for you. If you had been in Robert Knox's position, witnessing something horrific that contradicted everything you'd been told you were fighting for, would you have had the courage to write it down, to preserve the truth even knowing it might destroy you? Drop your honest answer in the comments below. I read every single one. If this story challenged what you thought you knew about the Civil War, hit that subscribe button. We uncover buried history like this every week. And check out the video right here where we explore another Confederate soldier's diary that revealed a secret network helping enslaved people escape. History is never just one story. It's thousands of voices, and some of them have been waiting a very long time to be heard. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.